Happy Halloween.
Welcome to the Halloween edition of State of Social Media. Okay, I don't know what these things are. Welcome to State of Social Media, where I will be telling you guys what social media is like as of October 2015, the Halloween month. Basically, what it is I start talking about how social media is for right now for people who are either out of the loop or for future generations who just want to see how it was back in the day. We will be covering all sorts of social media platforms and new and developing things. And of course, I love Halloween, although I haven't celebrated it in quite a while in reality. I just like the whole festivities, all the themes, all the stuff that people do on social media because of Halloween. So let's get started. Currently, there's the big six, as I like to call them, and these are Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, and Vine. Now, of course, there's plenty of others out there, but I consider these the big six because they hold the biggest audience and they have pretty strong foundations, and therefore their competitive advantages are the strongest. And I would foresee them staying around longer than the others if I had to bet, which I would never bet. And there are a few I've left out that are thriving and will also be around, but I consider them more niche type social media in the fact that even though they're niche, there's still tens of millions of people who go onto them, but they will never reach a mainstream audience. These include LinkedIn, which is a professional network, Pinterest, and Tumblr. I just don't feel like including, like arguably it is. It's more of like a blogging platform than a social media platform. Who knows what, but you get the point. And then there are the emerging platforms. There are four notable ones in the last year, and these are Beam, Shots, Meerkat, and Periscope. So let's start with these because these are interesting. So Shots was a social media platform slash company that Justin Bieber invested money in. And he brought a lot of people into Shots from his other social media platforms, which he is like one of the most followed people on. He's like one of the most followed people on Twitter and Instagram. So he had a lot of leverage to bring in people to Shots. And what Shots basically is basically Instagram with comments and hashtags disabled, pretty much. And from what I can tell, there was a lot of big Vine stars on Vine who had millions of followers, and they saw this and they started shouting out their own Shots account through Vine. And I guess what they were thinking was, hey, maybe if we're one of the first onto these platforms, we will get an edge and a first mover advantage, and we'll be able to grow our followings faster than other people who find out later. So that led to a huge influx of people, and right now, and they're still all on Shot. And I don't think it ever hit its critical mass and went mainstream. It's already been here for a long time. It's been around for about a year. And I think the big reason it never hit critical mass was that it wasn't a order of magnitude, as the billionaire tech investor Peter Thiel says. It wasn't a 10x magnitude greater than its competition. There wasn't just something incredibly outstanding about it that made everyone else jump onto it. It was just too similar to Instagram. And I like the concept because honestly, like on YouTube, the comments are very vicious. And that same thing applies to a lot of platforms like Instagram or Twitter or whatever else. So having no comments or having that feature enabled could be a great thing. It's based purely on what I can tell from observing the platform and culture. And even to this day, people are still using Shots. And from what I can tell, there is a bit of cross-pollination on there because you can literally send a shot or a picture of yourself to another person and they can reply. And this whole exchange goes out to all its followers. The biggest thing I didn't like though about it was that there wasn't really much discoverability for new people. And the culture of the platform is mainly for, selfies, and it's definitely more casual. So for new people, like the only real way of being discovered was if you post, if people found you through recently posted. Let's move on to Meerkat and Periscope. So Periscope is huge now. It's been huge for about a couple months. Meerkat came first, and then Periscope came a few months later. When Meerkat came out, a lot of people like talk shows like Jimmy Fallon were using it. The basic idea behind both of these platforms is it's basically a mobile live streaming platform. So that pretty much means you take out your iPhone, you press a button, and you are now streaming live through your phone to all your followers so they can see you and hear you and interact with you live and comment back. So Meerkat was thriving initially, and basically, and they had it integrated with Twitter so that each time you commented, you tweeted as well. Then Periscope came along, and it seems to have won the battle. Again, this was only a couple months ago, so who knows what's actually going to happen. Periscope does seem to have the huge edge now, and a lot of people have moved from Meerkat to Periscope. And when people comment on Periscope, it's not connected to their Twitter in a way where they tweet every time they comment. And I think that's a good feature because some people just don't want to have like 50 tweets when they're in a live streaming session. And Periscope has now been acquired by Twitter as a company. And I think it's a good move, a smart move for Twitter to make, to not like force integration where each comment is a tweet. Periscope is also kind of cool in that there's this little heart, and each time you tap it during the live stream, it shoots out a heart into the actual broadcast. So if your live stream is going really well, or you say something incredible, or you do something incredible, you will know it in real time because there will be like 100 hearts instantly flowing on the screen. You can kind of see how like each of these platforms can have all these small slight things that make it a little bit different. There's a bunch of like internet marketers who are kind of old in age, and they didn't understand these platforms at all, and I was just like so frustrated. And some of them claim that they did, and they're like, I do think for sure that Periscope will beat Twitch. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You don't understand these platforms. You clearly don't even use them. Twitch is a completely different thing. It is a live streaming platform for very intensive games, and there's so much behind its algorithm in terms of chat integration, donation integration, following integration. And there's hundreds of thousands of people who watch people play video games and computer games through that streaming service. Periscope and Meerkat are completely different. They're a rudimentary, casual, mobile live streaming platform where, you know, if you just want to press a button and live stream, which again I love because it's so simple to do, you can do that. But there is no way on heck you will be live streaming your video game, whether it's League of Legends or Agoria, on this little tiny mobile device. People who watch streams want the highest quality that they can get. Trust me, I've tried, and no one wants to watch you play League of Legends in terrible resolution when they can see it on Twitch or, you know, arguably YouTube gaming in high quality and high definition. Thus ends my rant. So yeah, Periscope is also winning because it has discoverability built in where you can search for things, or there's a global map of the world and you can zone in on a specific location and see if people are live streaming at the present moment from that location. Let's get to Beam. So Beam is a new social media platform created or co-founded by Casey Neistat. He is a vlogger on YouTube, and he's a very well-known vlogger right now. Currently, a lot of YouTubers are talking about him. He has 1.2 million subscribers. The basic idea behind it is it's kind of like Snapchat, where you take a photo, where you take a video of anything you want, and it's a short form video, so maybe 10 seconds or so. The difference is that you broadcast that to all your followers without having the ability to edit it or test it or do anything with it. And that's pretty much how they're pitching the app. They're pretty much pitching this platform as this thing where you can broadcast out, and because there's no editing, it adds a state of authenticity and innocence and pureness. You know, I don't have much to say about this thing because it's still in development. It's released already, and Casey Neistat is like constantly pitching it on his YouTube, in his description of his YouTube, in his Twitter bio, in his Instagram bio, all sorts of stuff, and his photos. It's currently released. I personally don't think it will get anywhere or hit critical mass. No offense, I'd love to be proved wrong. But again, back to Peter Thiel and his book 0 to 1, it's not a 10x magnitude of difference. It's really, I don't feel like it's enough for people to just like switch from what they're using now to something else. It doesn't add enough new utility. I think how they released it was wrong. You know, they should have built up more critical mass. You know, it's already released to the general public now, and it's still, you know, not taking up storm. But having said that, building up to it and, you know, having a beta only type thing and having exclusive people sign up first and let it grow from there, that doesn't guarantee success either. Google Plus tried to do that. There's this classy version of Tinder, and it was basically Tinder which is a dating app for professionals, and that one just never took off. Like, not enough people even signed up for it, and it was a whole mess. But I think Tinder is another great example. Even now, Tinder is still taking the world by storm. They've rolled out a premium feature, which I feel like may have been too much, but millions of people still use Tinder every single day. It's basically a very simple dating app where you swipe yes or no, and if you get a match, you can chat with that person. They really set the stone, set the culture, and got the early adopters on, and it really blew up because of how they approached it. Again, this is just what I've heard. Who knows if it's actually true? They released it first to all of the hottest sorority girls across the United States. Thus, from the get-go, from the very start, initially, from the get-go, all the girls on the app were the hottest Caucasian female girls. And guess what happens when that's the case? A ton of males flood in, and boom, it explodes. A lot of people, especially people up there in age or online businesses, they're kind of running with their heads chopped off. They have no idea what they're doing. They keep going from one thing to another thing to another thing. I always just pick one of the big foundational ones and stick to that. Like, some things will not be moving or changing that fast. Some of the foundational things like YouTube will be around for quite a while. And rather than jumping from this to Periscope to that, why don't you just like kill it on one platform? You have a message, you want to bring value, why don't you just sit there and actually bring value rather than working on the specifics of which platform to use to bring that value to people that don't know you. I do have to say one thing about Beam though. This goes back to my recent book review of the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. You can check that on my channel. I don't know if this is actually the case. It very well could not be at all. But it just feels, coming from an actual audience member, that for Beam and Casey Neistat and how he's pitching it, I really didn't get a strong why as to why he was doing this all. Like, he never really fully expressed it. And therefore, just based on how he's saying it and pitching it and so forth, kind of like shots, but maybe, was that there was no strong why behind it other than, oh, I want to be famous and rich or the next person to start a huge social media platform. And that's not something that I think people really want to connect with or really jump on board with that much. And perhaps it kind of shows maybe a little bit in the actual utility of Beam. Again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe Beam will take off. I don't know. Honestly, all this buzz and movement, I just think it's a bit too much. Some of those things though are very innovative, and they are filling gaps that I didn't even know that were out there, such as mobile live streaming. Periscope, Meerkat, or some other entrant will be around. This whole mobile live streaming thing is something new and it's interesting. But I do think, again, the big six have really covered a lot of the foundation of what's going on. Now let's go into the big six. So Vine, I think, is one of the weaker ones out there. I think it's still going fairly strong. You know, a lot of people on Vine are still doing really well. Having said that though, Jerome Jar, who is a very well-known Viner, he has like 1 point something million followers. He recently deleted all his Vines. I don't know why. In the last year, he started a talent agency with Gary Vaynerchuk for VineStar. And if you've been following Vine at all in the last year, there's been a bunch of sponsorships, companies coming on to sponsor things, to get Viners to sponsor things in their 6-second Vines. Companies like Coca-Cola and so forth. Again, don't get too crazy here. If you actually look at the culture, it's not like they're handing out sponsorships left and right. Only like the top Viners with millions of followers are really getting these, and oftentimes it's not a big brand or company like Coca-Cola. Although that has been happening more and more. The thing that Gary Vaynerchuk has been saying is that Vine has kind of died out. I was surprised about that, but like, I'm sure, but again, he probably knows more about it than I do because he actually has a talent agency and he's actually dealing with money within Vine. At the same time, you have Jerome Jar, who recently deleted all his Vines for an unknown reason. And he publicly stated recently that he had just turned down a $1 million deal from an ad agency for 1 year's worth of work in terms of some type of advertisement deal. Who knows what it is. I wrote a whole article about that. You can check that out at willyouLaugh.com. I'll leave a link in the description if I can remember. So again, some people are saying Vine is dying. And a lot of people I've talked to my age and younger, they're barely going on to Vine. Like, they don't even have Vine installed on their phones. And yet, from just looking at some of the big Vine stars, they still seem to be going fairly strong. Lele Pons is one of the most followed Viners. She has 6 billion loops. I think a decent chunk of the younger generation are not really using Vine, but I don't think it will die completely. It's still going fairly strong. Very clearly though, I feel like Vine is mainly for comedy and entertainment in 6 seconds. A lot of other areas and niches and interests cannot really be found on Vine. It just doesn't work on there. And its hashtag component is just not really working well, so there's not that much discoverability. I think Twitter and Instagram are really incredible in the sense that they're derivative platforms. And what I mean by this is that if you can grow a large following on a specific platform, and more often than not it's usually YouTube or Vine or Instagram, you can start moving that following to other platforms as well. Now, having said that, most people never really do this well. I've seen hundreds of YouTube channels who have 100,000 subscribers or 500,000 subscribers, and you look at their Twitters or Instagrams and they have 10,000 followers. And some of these people, every video they are plugging their other platform. From what I can tell, the people who do it the best, they have two things. One, they have millions upon millions of followers on their primary platform. Two, they put a decent chunk of time into these other platforms. So what I mean by that is PewDiePie, for instance, has millions upon millions of followers on YouTube. He's translated that into a couple million on Twitter and Facebook. And a lot of beauty gurus have done the exact same thing. And they end up getting even more followers on Instagram than they initially had on YouTube because they love Instagram and they put extensive work into their Instagram photos, into hashtagging, into contests, into giveaways, all sorts of stuff on that platform to grow their following on there. So they end up with like 8 million followers on Instagram and maybe 1 million on YouTube. Again, some models have done this very well as well, and initially they may have started on Instagram, but for whatever reason their Facebook has taken off. Again, the same thing has occurred for a lot of different interests, like Tipsy Bartender. He does this with alcohol and cocktail drinks. His Facebook and Instagram have just exploded. He has like 8 million followers and growing on Facebook, and about 2 million on his YouTube, which is his primary platform. So I do think it is important to have different platforms because this could happen. More often than not though, for most people, they stretch themselves too thin, or they're just better off doubling down on their main platform because they try to get people onto other platforms and it's just too much and no one comes on. YouTube still is one of my favorite platforms just because of how broad it is and how deep it is. You can literally search for anything under the sun, from finance to accounting to comedy to movies, anything you want, and you can find something, sometimes fairly good content, on YouTube for it. Now, does it cater to everything? Not exactly, but it definitely has so many more niches and topics than anything else. And it's the #2 biggest search engine in the world behind Google.com, which owns YouTube. And that's why I think it will be around for a decent while at least, unless, you know, something horrible happens and they stop being vigilant. Snapchat is just huge right now. There's one thing just hearing the theory and the numbers. It's another thing when you actually interact and talk with a lot of young people and see how often that they use it and how frequently that they use this thing. That's a completely different thing, and it is just really hot right now. I never really fully understood Snapchat and really got as to why it was so popular. I guess it's just down to the fact that it is private and you can just get a snapshot, a very casual snapshot into people's lives, and you can send just private messages and inside jokes. I don't know. So again, back to Beam, you know, I could be completely wrong. Beam could go crazy. Who knows? So here is how I will rank the big 6 right now. I would put Vine at #6. You know, again, it's doing all right. It's still thriving in my opinion to a certain extent. But as compared to the other big 6, it's just not doing so well. Vine is owned by Twitter. It's still fairly good though. I'd put at #6 Twitter. You know, Periscope is pretty huge right now. Apparently there's about 10 million members and that number is growing like every day. And 2 million then are active on Periscope every day, which is astounding. I just find that there's a lot of spam on Twitter. The engagement for people who actually, you know, favorite and retweet your stuff and actually interact is much lower than it is on other platforms like Instagram. I still think that Twitter, it will still be around for a long time. The whole idea of 140 characters or less, and the fact that so many people use it and tweet each other, and that whole retweet function, I just think it will be around for a while, despite it not doing so well. Again, also, Twitter has done a lot of new things in the past year. They've added Twitter video, which is a 30-second video you can add to a tweet or a reply, and that's doing fairly well, and it gets more engagement, and it's just more real. The problem is that it's still fairly clunky and glitchy. It's still fairly good though, and also now you can add comments when you repost or retweet something, and I think I like that as well too. Still, I would put it at number 5. Number 4, I would put as Snapchat, and I think this is huge right now. It is the hottest thing right now for the younger generation. But the thing is, I'm ranking it lower because I don't know if it has any long-term value. Again, who knows right now? The other ones above of Snapchat, I do think that there's long-term significance to them. Number 2 and 3, I'm going to put as a tie. So let's just put both of these at number 2. Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is just huge, and in certain ways I'd put it ahead of Facebook for sure. In the sheer amount of engagement it gets, you know, it's not as hot as Snapchat right now, but I think in terms of long-term value, I feel like it's just more durable, and it's just still getting tons of engagement, much higher than you get on Twitter or anything else in terms of people who like and comment back. This is the platform really for celebrities. One could argue, some people say it's the last frontier for celebrities and Hollywood celebrities. Although I could say Twitter, a lot of people are still on there as well. Amazing in terms of how the platform is aesthetically very pleasing, and it's just great for viewing very visually compelling photos or text or images. There's that phrase that marketers ruin everything. And one could argue that, maybe once after a few years it gets bloated and the spammers come on, it could go downhill a bit. As far as right now, though, I've been hearing a few success stories from people who have started from zero and built fairly profitable businesses off Instagram alone. Frank Body is probably the biggest example. I wrote an article on them, and they have went from zero to $20 million in revenue in 1 year off Instagram alone. Again, there's much more to that story than that. Who knows if revenues are actually profits? And from my own personal research, they did a lot of other stuff. They hired out a creative team. They got the help from a marketing/tactical company and a bunch of other stuff. Facebook, I think, is very huge right now, and it will continue to be because of its infrastructure that has already been built into the picture. There are already over 1 billion people who have accounts on Facebook. And because of how it is built and the user base on there already, many of which who are very active, and the fact that there's a lot of older people on Facebook now. Nowadays, you have everyone on Facebook. It used to be just the young kids, but now you have older people on there, grandpas, grandmas on there, and they just love it. And and a lot of these people, they're only on Facebook. They're not on any of the other platforms because they get to interact and talk with their family and friends and so forth. Again, not all elderly people are taking to Facebook. Having said that, though, the whole infrastructure is very, very incredible, and it allows for rapid virality, which pretty much means if something is really, really good that's released on Facebook and it gets enough traction and exposure initially, it will spread like wildfire and just be shared like crazy. And again, as I've mentioned, a lot of the Facebook pages just illustrate how much you can build a following on. I've seen some really, really incredible virality on Facebook that is not easily duplicated, but again, I've seen people who have grown tremendous followings on Facebook alone, from motivational speakers to social media gurus and so forth. By the way, I don't claim to be some type of social media expert or guru. In fact, you should be kind of cautious when you ever hear something like that. I always think back to that time when Jack Ma, the founder and CEO of Alibaba, which is one of the biggest Chinese internet companies in the world, and back when he first pitched ideas for starting an internet page and a internet yellow pages for China, he went to a panel of internet experts which is kind of funny because this was the 1990s and there's already self-proclaimed internet expert. And so this whole panel of people told him all these things about how he should give up and how it will never work because they understand the internet better and they are the internet experts. Guess what happened? He didn't listen to them, and look at him now. Where are these internet experts? I don't even know. So keep that in mind. Every single thing that I have said could be 100% wrong. And if you've heard or been on the internet in the last year, you will realize that Facebook videos are huge. And ever since Facebook installed them in the way that they are installed now, which is very ingenious, what they did was that they make the videos autoplay, but they autoplay on mute. And so when you're scrolling through your newsfeed, you will see videos playing already without you having to press play or anything. And if you want to watch them or listen to them, you unmute them. And so because they're already playing, it kind of like entices you to watch more. So I just find that very intriguing as opposed to the thumbnail model that was used previously. The point is that ever since this has occurred a few months ago, YouTube and Facebook have kind of been competing a lot. They've been getting a little edgy because they realize the, potential of this. And a lot of internet experts and social media experts have been saying how it's a huge battle, Facebook video versus YouTube video. In reality, in my opinion, I think they're playing in completely different fields, unless Facebook does something drastically different. All these online internet experts are saying that Facebook video will one day overtake YouTube video and all sorts of other stuff. And the reason why I say that they're in completely different fields, which is, believe it or not, very contrary to what the majority of the crowd is saying right now, is the fact that Facebook video is really just very short-term, short performance. You release it on a feed and every one of your followers may watch it, but then it just disappears into oblivion. YouTube is the long tail game where it is a giant search engine and search database. They're playing in different fields. When you want to figure out how to tie a tie and you search it on Google or YouTube, you will find tons and tons of those videos, some of them the absolute best quality, the absolute most relevant ones, and those will continue forever to rack up views upon views. You can do the same thing on Facebook and they will be lost into oblivion. So if you look at the statistics, Facebook videos, when they are released right now, they're getting much more exposure and views initially on the first day, or maybe even the first week, than if the counterpart YouTube video were to be released. However, in the long tail, in the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years, again, I would say, even YouTube videos have a shelf life of 2 to 3 years because of revolutions in video quality and video technology and video editing for, new people to just make better videos of how to tie a tie. But still, in those 3 or 4 years, you will rack up many, many more views than that Facebook video will, especially if your content is a searchable type of content. And you can see this across companies. Like, just look at BuzzFeed. Like, BuzzFeed is playing on both fields very well, but they know the power of both, which is why they are tailoring their content for Facebook and specifically for YouTube and releasing them on both, not just one. A lot of YouTubers and people who have gotten their success on YouTube are so averse to putting stuff on the Facebook, and I don't understand why. Who cares if Facebook is not paying you for your videos? Who cares if people are stealing your videos and putting it onto Facebook? If you put it on there first and it goes viral on there, then there's no reason for anyone else to copy you and get a fraction of those views because you've already done it on your own official Facebook account. In addition to that, the sheer infrastructure for virality on Facebook is just huge. Your videos may be getting 1 million views on YouTube when you release them, but if you put them on Facebook, you have the potential, and I've seen it, to reach 100 million people just based off how Facebook and its algorithm works right now. Again, I've heard a lot of things about Facebook. Some people, they've had success on Facebook and then one change in the Facebook algorithm and they're not getting discovered anymore. So that is exactly what I would do if I had that type of following or, traction on Facebook and time, and I really wanted to focus on those sort of things. And of course, I would put YouTube as number one because of all the things I've mentioned already, and also the sheer amount of entertainment as well as information and all sorts of other stuff that's on here. Now, not everything blows up virally on YouTube, but a lot of things get tremendous traction on YouTube alone. So that's all I want to say, and this is my Halloween edition of State of Social Media. And as an honorable mention, I do have to mention that I've heard rumors that Amazon may be getting into the online video space, and I think outside of Facebook and YouTube, it's probably one of the only ones that has the infrastructure and technology and resources and bandwidth and can afford to store as many videos as Facebook or YouTube does. The point is that YouTube, I think, is pulling farther and farther ahead, and there really is no number two competitor in the exact sense and function that YouTube functions as a search engine. Like Metacafe and Vimeo and Vessel. Vessel is in a completely different space. It's about private, high premium videos for a membership fee. Metacafe and Vimeo have just fallen so behind. They technically do what YouTube used to do, and Metacafe used to be a direct competitor with YouTube. It was getting just as much traffic, but now they've just died. They've fallen to the wayside. You know, Vimeo is still going on, and it still serves a different type of market, you know, documentaries, long form or exclusive content, but it does definitely seem like YouTube is pulling farther and farther away and developing a stronger, durable competitive advantage. And I think Amazon or Facebook, this is the time to get into the game, if ever. That's all I gotta say. As always, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Leave now while you still can.
Leave now before Master finds you.